Welcome back to Plain Speak, where we pick the brains of industry experts for a quick 30-minute chat on the intersections of technology and customer support. Today, week to go till Thanksgiving, we are fully entrenched in Q4, the epicenter of direct-to-consumer brands' business calendars, and we are super thrilled to have Spenser Woodard, the head of CX at Nisolo Shoes, joining us for a discussion on stepping into style, bridging fashion, and customer experience tech. Nisolo, if you're not familiar with them, produces ethically made shoes and accessories. They sell both online as well as in partner retail outlets. And they also have 4 brick and mortar stores across New York City, Washington, D.C., Boston, and Nashville. Now, with nearly a decade of experience in the hospitality industry, ranging from server to assistant general manager, Spenser, as we'll dive into, cultivated a really unique skill set centered around providing exceptional service, no matter what the venue. His e-commerce journey actually has this incredible origin story, which began when Spenser waited on the CEO of his former company who resonated with his tableside ethos. Right. And now Spenser's mission is to craft customer communication strategies that make people across screens and phone calls in our digital world today feel as if they're receiving the same kind of that exceptional tableside managerial service that he once provided in person. His journey from the world of dining to e-commerce underscores the importance of customer experience across and consistently across all of those venues. So, for those of you joining us for the first time at Plain Speak, I'm Liz Tai, and I'm the CEO and founder of High Operator. We are the leading customer support solution that dynamically scales based on a company's evolving needs. Our proprietary customer support tools leverage, NLP, workflow automation, and little bits of generative AI in the right place at the right times to tackle even the most complex customer requests. Our products include an auto data tagging tool, Highlight, as well as High Auto, which is our comprehensive, fully automated customer support solution. As a very quick housekeeping note, if you have questions or comments, please feel free to put them into the chat wherever you're watching this. If we don't get to them during the session, we will reach out and or post answers on LinkedIn. Now, for the main event, let's get going. Spenser, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Super excited.
It's Black Friday's around the corner, so thank you for being here. I know I talked a little bit about your origin story, but I think, throughout all of our conversations and your work at Nisolo, it's really clear that your experience in the restaurant industry has really deeply influenced your approach to customer experience at Nisolo Shoes. You've mentioned you've carried over sort of key elements to create that seamless digital experience. Can you, elaborate a little bit more on how principles from the in-person restaurant world have translated into your work in the CX department, both our previous roles and now in Nisolo's particularly unique approach?
Yeah, absolutely. First off, Liz, thanks for having me. Super excited to kind of share a little bit of my story here. But as we talked and you kind of introed me on, I spent about 10 years in the restaurant business, from serving tables to assistant general manager, back to leading service for another restaurant. Came in contact with the CEO of that restaurant, or Groove Life at that time, in the restaurant. And at that point, he wanted me to be around people and help influence and impact them with the service that I provided for them during their time with us at that restaurant. And so really, when I went to Groove Life, actually, to start, I went in as fulfillment to help lead people, which I had been doing in the restaurant as well, which then obviously translated into me becoming the director of customer experience. And one thing that I always thought about in the restaurant where, you've got people in front of you, you've got to make very quick decisions, very quick customer service decisions live. And so when we talked about this, it was like my PhD for customer service was the restaurant business. But yeah, and then rolling that into the e-commerce space, it was like, okay, how can I take what I've learned in the restaurant space and really correlate that to where there's sometimes this barrier that's naturally there, which is the computer screen. There's not face-to-face interactions. It's somebody sending in their request and you're receiving the request and having to respond with any type of empathy and utilize those customer service skills, right? And so what I aim to do was create a remarkable experience for anybody across the computer screen, just like I did in person. And to do that, obviously, we have to utilize the personalization, make sure we're understanding where the customer's coming from. If they're in an SMS format, making sure that we give them a phone call if things feel complicated or things of that nature. So yeah, I really want to create a seamless very friendly approach, just like we had in the restaurant business, and really translate that over into the e-commerce space, in which I thought there was some opportunity to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. Because like you said, right, in the restaurant industry, it's super real time. You're right there.
Yeah.
And, on a digital channel, there is a little bit more of that barrier. But I think you talked a little bit about how you can sort of reach through that, right? How do you, instead of treating it as a barrier, treat it as that portal to allow you to really parachute into that customer experience, maybe go from an SMS to a phone call. It's such a fascinating sort of holistic way to think about it. And like you just mentioned, it was interesting because you come from a very people-focused background, right? When you met the CEO, of your last of Groove Life at the restaurant, he said, "I love this experience. Come and create it internally first, right? Before translating it externally." Tell me a little bit about that. How do you think about the bridge and the divide between rallying that team internally and then translating it externally?
Yeah, I think when we really look at it, and kind of the way I had approached it at the time, we're like, I want to make sure people are excited about doing the job. I think that excitement immediately leads to a better customer experience for the customer on the other side of things. And so, like, no matter whether the customer's having the worst issue or even the best issue, just making sure that they feel heard and they can feel that tone, feel that empathy, and obviously watch the execution happen live. I think it's something that's very, very healthy. I'm never afraid to get my hands dirty with the team and show them exactly how we do those things too. But yeah, the journey really led me to like prioritize empathy and tone,
Mhm.
making sure that we are very, very key in personalization and making sure that
Yeah.
customers feel value and heard. So I think there was a shift because the industries were different, but the common goals are very, very consistent amongst both of those channels, which I think has been really, really fun. It's kind of interesting, kind of coming from the restaurant business and looking at the digital world at that time. It felt very far fetched. It felt like, I don't know
Mm.
how we take something I do very in person and put that into a digital space and see how it works. But the overlay is actually closer than I can even imagine today, and I'm so thankful of my time then, doing so in the restaurant business.
Yeah, it's really that overlay, right? Because it's not a one-to-one translation. Okay, so let's talk about sort of this little, sometimes historical gap a little bit, right? Because you've got in person, you've got that warm interaction, and then your journey and transition to e-commerce, which is often behind, a screen of some sort.
Right.
And then generative AI, I think we'll argue, is bridging the gap a little bit. But how do you tell me a little bit about your journey into automation? Maybe your initial thoughts, any skepticism, and then how you've really found ways to leverage that.
Yeah, I think if you talk about AI and there wasn't a point of skepticism somewhere, then you'd probably be not telling the truth, right? If I'm being
I'll be
honest. Yeah, no, yeah. I think if you're being honest, I think it's something that is transcending the world in front of our eyes. I think there's obviously automation that's around us that we don't even think is automation. That's how good it is.
Mhm.
But as I kind of looked at moving into the space of automation and how it could better enhance kind of our customer experience, whether that's at Groove Life or now at Nisolo, um, we've got to listen to where the customers are and what they're looking for and what they're after. And I think sometimes what happens is you're like, well, this is what my favorite customer experience is, and I have to be very, very cautious of of doing that,
Interesting.
because because we all have our favorite customer experiences, right? Like it's Target, it's Starbucks, it's whatever it is for you. You're looking at those and those. That's my brand. That's what I want to emulate, right? But for
Mhm.
us, we're my team, we're looking at kind of listen to the customers, understand their needs. I think where I wanted to bring in that personal touch from the restaurant world, I think I also realized that customers in the e-commerce space wanted these quicker, faster interactions. Not necessarily that they're less engaging, but just a little bit more efficient and clear and very thorough. And so I think taking a little bit of that restaurant world of like that personal touch, but also understanding in the e-commerce space, there is this balance of customers who want to get things done quickly, very efficiently, and move on about their day. That's the type of customer service they wanted. And I think automation, and as I started looking at how do we do this, automation had to be one of the main game players when we started looking at that kind of decision tree.
Absolutely, because there is a little bit of that, contrast, right? Because you want to provide, personal touches, really organic, genuine interactions, no matter what medium you're on. But I think what I'm hearing from you a little bit now is that there's something about sort of meeting the customer where they are, right?
Right.
It's not everything needs to be an over the top. And so tell me a little bit, what are some examples of how you try and bring either data points or automation to try and sort of meet them where they are? How do you balance sort of the, you have to keep moving, we have to get through these things, but also a little bit of personal touch?
Yeah, so I think kind of, as we talk through kind of the structure of my roster and the team that I have now, it's you're always trying to grow bodies. And I think as you try to grow bodies, it's really difficult to keep the culture intact, right? And that's something that we're really after. But when we really look at it, whether you're looking at effort score, you're looking at CSAT, whatever metric you're using, they're really all conflicting. It's really hard to kind of pick which one you want to move on and go through. But data and feedback has been our best friend in this in this whole conversation. And when you start looking at the data behind the scenes and looking at the feedback from the customers about where they want the personal touch and where they don't want the personal touch, it's really interesting that automation just fits right and wedges yourself right in between both of those two conversations.
Mhm.
Automation allowed us to really balance efficiency on tickets and customers that really wanted that kind of avenue, and then allowed us to take the other labor that we found very important and attribute that obviously to lifetime value, and looking at what we could do to improve our product design, improve just how we approach customers from a marketing standpoint, what the next product they wanted to see, what would they buy, what would they change. We were able to actually take the extra labor on the side and really, really look at how we can improve the business in totality, which I think is always great.
Absolutely. And I love your focus on really not just support being support, but how does that play into the business in this overall totality, right? And because I think you're totally right. Like historically, there has been this maybe impression that's always a direct trade-off between cost and efficiency and personalization and experience, right?
Right.
Because when you're in person, it's actually, you have sort of a superpower on a digital channel that you don't have in person, right? In person, you're helping customers in serial, and it's kind of true, right? Every minute you spend with one customer, you're not spending with another customer, right? But on a digital channel, automation and to some extent generative AI and pulling in those data points, like what have they bought before, things like that kind of help bridge that divide, right? So it's not a zero-sum game anymore. You can really start to think about how you can design the right tools to not only have this incredible level of personalization, but also still be quite efficient. I
Right.
think is what I'm hearing here a bit. Um, that's so fascinating. And Spencer, a little bit of a maybe sidebar here, but your focus on that overall customer LTV has always really struck me, especially coming from support. I remember the first time we met, you talked me through some of the long-term customer retention programs y'all had, and I was blown away by, wow, that's a lot. My thought sort of went to, hey, how do y'all afford to do that? Do you have any sort of thoughts or quick tips for other customer experience leaders on how you were able to contextualize that within your broader org? Was there a lot of executive buy-in? How did you and your team sort of advocate for customers in that way?
Yeah, I think just really, which is very interesting, even in my last really like 7 years of being in the ecom CX space, our voice at the table has only gotten stronger. And I think it's a lot of the professionals out there. I think a lot of companies are starting to realize we need somebody at the table to represent the customer, right? Got your marketing team, you got your product team, but like wedging somebody in between there that's like, hey, here's what our customers are saying, here's what they want to see, here's how I think we need to approach, I think has always been beneficial. But I think, and really in the last 3 to 5 years, we started seeing the customer experience really division really get stronger and stronger. But for us, a lot of those initiatives came from, yeah, definitely executive and C-suite buy-in. And the way we were able to do that is putting ourselves in front of them, whether that's every other month, whether that's quarterly, and just talk about initiatives. And we were able to segment part of our team towards the data and towards the feedback, right?
Mm,
I think when you really start talking about customer experience, right, you've got the customer service, you've got the social moderation, the community moderation, but then you've got the data and the feedback that really starts to drive other business initiatives within the company and the org. And sometimes in the customer experience world, you don't necessarily always add to the bottom line, but I think there's, if you can always prove and provide ways to where the bottom line can be impacted, or by making these decisions, just how we can impact the bottom line, I think it's always a healthy conversation at the table to really gain buy-in.
absolutely. It's just, could you close that loop, right? Because you're right? There's bottom line, but then there's overall. I mean, really, if you're thinking about experience, you can spend tens, hundreds, thousands of dollars on a customer if you can prove that LTV and that ROI, right? There's no number really that's too big as long as you complete that data story. And I think, Spenser, you've always had that sort of doubling down on that, but with the story, and that's been, I think, really incredible to see. But sorry, we are getting away from automation a little bit. But so we were talking about how automation gives you the best of both worlds, personalization as well as efficiency. Tell me a little bit about whether that's related to the technology itself or how your team interacts with it, right? Is it about the technology aiding your agents, or is it sort of the technology communicating directly with the customers?
Yeah, I think it's actually both, right? I think the way that the technology works, it allows the team to. We talk about this all the time. It's like when you're looking at these metrics that you're really having to judge your team off of, you're really going to compromise and sacrifice somewhere, right? Whether that's team morale, whether that's cost, based on whatever metric you're running your department off of, or your organization's running it off of. There's something to always sacrifice in the customer experience space. With the way that automation has helped us and benefited us the most, we can kind of take away this efficiency mark a little bit more and get a little bit more creative and also get a little bit more personal with the customer. So I think the customer loves to feel heard and feel like their ideas are something that we value. And I think we're able to actually do those in a consistent manner. I think we've always tried to do those, but to have the consistency added to that has definitely helped us grow, our company and also grow our fan base, right? Like, I think that's what we're all after, is like, let's grow our fan base here. But I think with the tools, they've been so creative and adaptable. Like, when you think about AI in just one arena, AI grows as well. Automation grows as well. There's things that it's learning every single day. And I think it's definitely gotten to a place now to where it's kind of killing the monotonous vibe that most CX departments have to battle week in and week out. And I think that's been the most helpful piece of it. I know it sounds very, very simple, but it's like, if I can get my team that enjoys to be at work every single day even happier by not having to do Wismo tickets every single day, like, what's my order, which I know it's most of our favorite type of tickets out there. But just by being able to do that, there's even more of a business case that you can get to your executive teams and more time to spend on actual action items that you can help improve the business and improve your roadmap for your whole company.
Absolutely. Yeah. Helping improve that roadmap and overall business is so, so key. And I think there's two things here I'd love to double click on a little bit. One is stakeholder alignment, because I think you did a really good job of considering every stakeholder. Sometimes it's easy for one to slip through the cracks, and then sort of double click on maybe the specifics around automation. You said both creativity as well as accuracy. Because on the stakeholders, right, it's true, right? You have the brand, right? The brand is looking for efficiency while creating great customer experiences. The customer is looking for that touch of feeling heard, but also, being able to get effective, effortless service where they need it. But you've also really double clicked here on the agent, right? And I've always been and it sounds, and we'll talk about hiring later as well, but if you hire the right agents, they care about your brand, they know about your brand, they embody your brand. Then you sit them down and you say, hey, you're going to do 8 hours, 80% Wismos, right, with just a few opportunities for extra engagement.
Right.
That's interesting, right? So when you think about an automation tool, it's really, how do you improve life for all three of these stakeholders, right? Tell me a little bit about, because sometimes I think automation can be positioned a little bit out of alignment with the actual agent teams. Tell me about how you sort of brought that into your team and how they've responded to that at the agent level.
Yeah, one key word, which is transparency, right? When we bring in automation and we talk to the team about what it's going to do, there was definitely some skepticism, right? They're like, I think the first question is always like, does this eliminate my role, right? I think that's a very great question. It's a strong question. Without preparation, obviously a hard question to answer. But my goal with the automation wasn't to eliminate the team, So to bring them in the very beginning about like, hey, here's what I'm kind of looking at. Here's what I'm thinking about doing. Here's how it impacts us. There's more buy-in. And as we go and we're building this out together, like, hey guys, here's some tickets that the automation did. Will you kind of look through them and kind of give me some feedback on how you would like this ticket to go differently or better, or is it great just the way it is? And so as we're meeting together as a unit and team weekly, bi-weekly, whatever that looks like, we're building out the automation and the expectation of the automation as a team. And therefore now what it feels like is that we're trying to bring on a team member and we're training a team member, not automation versus us at the
Yeah.
table. Right. And so like that's how we manage the stakeholder. And when we really talk about like the employee experience, like the employee experience is something that I've been really big on really, really early on, because I think we can all agree that 8 hours of customer experience tickets are very difficult to do 5 days a week, all the year through the holidays. You can obviously get the gist of where I'm going with that.
10-hour days.
Yeah, 10-hour days, whatever days, hopefully it's
Yeah.
8, if it's 10, it's 9, whatever it is for you guys, whatever works. But yeah, I think for us, really, when we started looking at it, we said, hey, look, I think the automation has way more positives than negatives. The negatives are things that we can easily work out. And I think the team has responded very, very well. I think they're able to do, like I said, more of the Kindle reviews, community moderation. We're really diving into things, and I think honestly, the one last key point I want to make sure that I say on this call today is it's really opened up their idea of what growth looks like in the e-commerce space. I think when you talk about customer experience, a lot of times people feel like they hit their ceiling really early on, and there's not much room for growth. They can't see outside of it, outside the CX department. At Nisolo, we're on the marketing vertical, right? And so there's just a lot more at play with automation. There's a lot more ways to look at growth, feel growth, and find other ways to give your team more to do at a higher level.
I love it. And I love that you sort of emphasize it's in the marketing vertical, because that's, I think, what it's a slightly different mindset where customer support isn't support, right? Support is one part of customer experience, and you really get that space to sort of think and grow that team. You said something else interesting in here, Spenser, which is, it's not about onboarding software. It's really almost like you're training it like a team member, right? Because we think about automation sometimes on two axes, right? You have the nuts and bolts. Those are the policies, whether or not it's accurate, right? That's like the structure. And then you have the details of how you communicate it. That's kind of like the interior design, right?
Right.
And one always has to be there, right? The structure needs to be correct. The rules, policies, procedures need to be correct. Otherwise, the building doesn't stand, right? But and I know in partnering together, where it's really interesting is getting those interior design details, because that's where your agents, right? Any brand's agents are going to be the expert on this is how we say it, this is how we communicate it, this is how we create the experience.
Correct. Yeah, I think when you're looking at that interior decorator kind of analogy, I think it's perfect. I think that's kind of where I've let the team run their domain in that. And like I kind of tell them too, it's like, because really you've got forward facing policies, right? We don't allow returns at 30 days. Most of us say, hey, we'll take it at 45, right? And like our team is kind of dealing with the customer day in and day out. So I feel like there's certain decisions as a business, right, you've got to make. I think when it comes to your team growth, trust, all those key words, you've got to do that with the team. And I think we're able to do that when we're onboarding, automation. It's like, hey, here's what it looks like. Here's the scope. Here's how we feel about it. How do we want to execute the policy, procedures? It's really a team effort when it comes to how do we want this place to look, right? And so when we
Yeah.
talk about culture and how we build it out, we want to make sure that the automation piece that we're adding to our team as a positive add, not a pull and tug type situation. And do that is to bring them in early on the conversation.
Yeah, they're the partners. I know we've touched on it here and there, but I'm curious about your customer experience team. Tell me a little bit about that. Are they in-house? Do you work with external partners like BPOs? What does that look like?
Yeah, so no BPOs on the team. We actually have 15 remote reps. 90% of my team are located in the broader Nashville area.
Mm.
So we do come in together once a month and try to have some team bonding and just team discussion, kind of like not like State of the Union, that's really strong, but very similar to kind of voice concerns and just talk about natural things. But yeah, we've built a team with people who are fans of Nisolo and the sustainability fashion industry, which is definitely a growing industry right now, and
Yeah.
understand kind of that workspace and kind of what our customer base is. So yeah, we built the team around kind of the Nashville area at the time. Now we've kind of got some people in Colorado and got some people in New York City, but all in all, really a a full remote team in the broader Nashville area.
Super cool. So given that, you've got this unique setup with sort of like a mostly localized but fully remote team that you manage, tell me a little bit about your approach to hiring. What do you prioritize? And then what, if anything, has this new increased level of automation changed about what you look for when you hire?
Right. Yeah. So I think this is kind of evolved over the years. I think it kind of changes every couple of years what you're looking for. I used to think because coming from the restaurant business, it was very simple, like what you were looking for, like experience and have you served tables before. So you would kind of go through this thing, and it was like, oh, it's very simple. I can hire you tomorrow, right? When it comes to like e-commerce customer experience, I think there's probably three categories I look at the most, which is personality traits, technical skills, and obviously just experience. And a lot of those traits obviously overlap as you go, but really trying to hire someone who understands what the day to day looks like. For me, there's some people that might hire. I rather you be strong in technology. I can teach you um, the personality traits and the skill sets of a customer service individual. I tend to look at it a little bit backwards. Or not backwards, I would say, just my way. I look at it and say, look, if you have the attitude, the energy, the personality to do this on a day to day, I'll take that and I'll teach you how um, how the computer skill sets work and how we can bring that on board.
I love that. And I think that actually speaks a little bit to the decoupling between efficiency and cost and personalization earlier, right? Because when you don't have any automation in the world before automation, you need that agent to get through 200 tickets a day or whatever that number is, right? Which means they've got to be able to move these really, really, really quickly. And when it comes holiday peak season, that might be the one skill that you really have to optimize for. But it sounds like what I'm hearing now is that with some automation, with places where to streamline some of those higher volume, maybe high or contacts that you want to be really low effort, you don't need to optimize for that. It's actually giving you the ability to really focus on things like brand, empathy, experience over the pure technicals of how quickly do you read and how quickly can you move those fingers.
Yeah, Liz, I think that's true. I think also one thing I would say is like what it also has done is it's allowed us to hire individuals and spend more time in their training. I think for me, getting people trained up and getting them ready to roll, and by the time they're ready to actually start customer engagement, sometimes that can be a long road, right? Like, and some of us all obviously train differently. You might start somebody in Wismo and they're doing only Wismo tickets. You might start somebody in Wismo and teach them everything and say, hey, you're ready to become an agent. And most agents do learn differently. And I think that's kind of one thing that we have to keep at play here too. But I think the automation actually allows us to find individuals who fit the culture of the team, who are going to enhance the culture of the team, and gives us some time and some space with less pressure to have them perform a week after they're hired, 5 days after they're hired. We're in a pinch, we need you. It allows us space to really get them onboarded in the proper manner and give them the materials and the skill set attributes that we think they'll need to be successful.
I love it. Yeah, it gives you that space. Allows you to give them that skill set, and I think it sort of closes that loop to that growth. Right, your job is not answering 100 Wismos a day. Your job is that overall experience. And I love the picture that you painted within the vertical of marketing of, hey, there is a future here. That's really exciting.
Yeah, I think too, it's like as a CX director, my goal is to really look back a year and go, I've almost got a new team, right? Like I would love for everybody to grow in different roles, whether that's in Nisolo or even more CX departments, within what they want to do in their skill set. But it's like, I would love to just have people growing like crazy. And I think that creates a healthy balance culturally, right? Like sometimes you're like, I want to keep all my best people. It's like, well, I want to do that too. But I would like for them to grow so that people around them can see what growth looks like and that it's achievable. And so I think with automation, what it's helped us do is like really spend time in development, making sure that growth is evident and something that's reachable, which I think in the past without automation, things kind of feel stuck in certain silos. It's kind of like, well, where else can I go? I think there's just more things that we're, kind of we're picking up rocks and looking at the rocks and going, oh my goodness, we really need to focus here. And we're able to actually look under the rocks instead of just going, we have a lot of rocks, So it's been healthy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, they get to look up, you get to root for their growth and success without worrying about, well, what about the ticket queue? I love that.
That is it. That is it.
No, I love it. We're down to our last couple minutes here, but let's do our rolling questions real quick. So every session we do a rolling question. Yours is coming from TJ Stein, the head of CX at Everlane. He'd like to know what holiday deals you're looking to take advantage of this year, Spenser.
So all of you know I work for Nisolo. I love shoes, all shoes, any shoes. I've been on Nike scrolling for the past 3 days on their 60% off sale, what's coming, what sneaker deals are going to be there. So every season, I feel like I get me a few pair of shoes. And so I always look forward to that time. So I probably will take advantage of that for sure. And kind of funny, I'm looking into, I've been playing pickleball with the guys. So we're looking for some pickleball deals and finally getting some nets and all the proper paddles to make us feel like we're pros, although we're nowhere near what that looks like.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it. Yeah, this time of year, I'm always wondering to myself, do I pull the trigger now or in a week? But that's an exciting time. Now you get a chance to ask and answer the question for our next Plain Speak guest.
Okay.
Tell me about your favorite holiday tradition, maybe Thanksgiving or any other holiday.
Okay, so it's Thanksgiving. We're now going on year 7 of doing this.
Oh, wow.
Each generation on my mom's side, we all prepare a turkey and have a turkey cook-off. So usually I'm with my cousins that are my age. We have not won a year yet. We actually have my mom's group is the 5-time defending champion right now. And we do get outside sources to come in and try the turkey. So it's actually a big thing that happens in a rural area of Kentucky. And this year I'm taking no prisoners. So we're going to try to make the best turkey. I'm not going to tell you my secret, although it's not really a great secret because we can't win, but I still hold it very dear to my heart.
I'm excited. I am very curious how you're going to cook that turkey. But yeah, it'll be a handing over the torch when the kids get to beat the moms and elder generation. So
that's it.
Good luck, Spenser. I'm excited to see how it goes. I need photos. And everyone else, thank you again for everyone who's tuned in to spend some time with us today. If you have any customer support questions, especially thinking about LTV or automation to elevate your team, please reach out to us or to Spenser and come join us for one last retail edition of Plain Speak on Wednesday, November 29th at 1 p.m. Eastern, where we will be chatting with Devlin O'Neill, a CX expert formerly with Lululemon and Etsy. Spenser, thank you again so much. Good luck on the turkey cook-off.
Thank you so much for having me.